Okay, so my name's Kaitlyn. I'm the dietitian for Waukee Community School District. So we have one dietitian on our district nutrition services team, and about 11,500 students right now, and growing very quickly. We're growing one of the fastest growing communities in the state of Iowa. We have 14 schools right now, and we are about 17% free and reduced, and we serve about 1.5 million lunches a year, and then breakfast and summer meals are there as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the federal guidelines for school meals that we have to follow. So the National School Lunch and Breakfast programs are both administered and funded by the USDA. Just a brief history. In the 1930s, the Great Depression was underway and children were coming to school malnourished. And so the federal government was finding that new recruits into the Army were not fit for service due to being malnourished at school. And so school lunch was really a way to feed children, to utilize those surplus crops that were around during war times, and to also strengthen our armed forces. Oh, whoopsie. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. The school lunch program was established in 1946 under the Russell V. National School Lunch Act. And I just included the preamble to the act there. I thought it's really great to see that language that was created about school lunch. And I find that as a measure of national security to safeguard the health and well-being of the nation's children, it's a very powerful statement about the purpose of what school lunch was put in place for. So in 2010, the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act was enacted, and this updated the meal pattern requirements and the nutrition standards for school meals. So we will talk about those standards now. So this is breakfast, the guidelines that are required for school lunch, school breakfast. The guidance or the food groups components that are listed must be offered at each breakfast meal. So at breakfast we have to offer fruits, grains, and milk. So the first number, if you look on the left, it'll say 5 and then the 1 in parentheses. The 5 is for the number of cups that must be offered over the course of a week, and the 1 means that we have to offer 1 cup per day. Grains are figured in ounce equivalents, so you can see the amounts there, and then milk is figured in cups. We also have to account for calories, saturated fat, sodium, and trans fat when we're thinking about menu planning and what we're putting on the menu, so you can see the amounts required there for breakfast. So lunch, again, there are requirements for weekly requirements and then daily requirements as well. Vegetables are one of the caveats here. There are the different subgroups that must be offered over the course of a week, and you can see those amounts there. And then in addition to fruits, vegetables, and milk, we also have to offer meat and meat alternates. So that's your protein group. And so I included this meme. This is really, school nutrition can be really overwhelming when you first get into it, but I just think it's really funny. We all get it figured out eventually, but it is very overwhelming with all the rules at first. And one thing I will also add on is we do also have to follow guidelines for any foods served outside the meal or a la carte items, and those are called SMART snack guidelines. I didn't want to put details in there about those rules as well, but just so you know, there are guidelines around calories and sodium and different things for those extra items out there. So February 11th of this year, some new flexibilities were rolled out. You may be seeing some media around this, some pushback on the new flexibilities that were offered. So they focused on milk, grains, and sodium. So milk, we were only allowed to offer non-fat or skim flavored milk, and now we can offer students 1% or low-fat flavored milk, which is really, for some kids, that's a more appealing flavor, and will get them to actually drink the milk versus not taking milk at all. Grains, all of our grains offered previously had to be whole grain rich, and waivers were allowed in certain circumstances if hardship could be demonstrated, such as decreased participation by switching from an enriched to a whole grain. The new flexibilities have rolled back where we can offer half of our grains to be whole and half to be enriched. But that 50% that's whole grain must be whole grain rich, which is 51% or more whole grain in that product itself. And waivers will no longer be allowed. So it really is, there had been a lot of waivers granted, and so really in the end, this rule, when it was 100% whole grain, was really not serving its purpose. And so now with the flexibilities, it really enforces that we do need to offer more whole grains. And then sodium, you can see the timeline for the sodium targets was altered as well. So very briefly, we practice what's called offer versus serve in a lot of our buildings. And this gives students freedom of choice for what they put on their plate. So at breakfast, the student must take 3 of the 4 items that are offered, and 1 must be a half a cup of fruit. And then at lunch, students must take 3 of the 5 components offered, and 1 must be a half cup of fruit or vegetable. So really this gives kids a choice of how much they put on their tray and really allowing them to choose what they eat and eat what they take. So I'll hand it over to Becky.
Hi, I'm Becky. I am from Waverly Shell Rock Schools. We serve about 2,200 students. We have a free reduced percentage of 23%. In our district, we have 4 elementaries and 2 production kitchens, so we do transport food throughout the day. Where are my student tables at? Where are our college students today? All right, here is your message of the day. When I was in college, I thought I will never ever be in food service. I did not like my food service classes. It did not appeal to me. I was going to be in clinical, and I was going to do something completely different. So here I am in food service for 6 years in a very much a management role. I never ate hot lunch, ever, growing up. So ironically, here I am in school food service. So pay attention in those classes. I know they're a little daunting. I know you just want to throw the textbook out the window, but hang in there and pay attention. I think that the learning curve that Kaitlyn stated is a real thing. I remember looking at ounce equivalents and I'm like, who made this up? Like it's a foreign language, and I'm not going to say I blame USDA. Someone somewhere made up ounce equivalents, and there's a chart. There's a chart for all the things. So the learning curve is a little bit steep, but I hope that you see why dietitians are a good fit for school service, food service roles. So staffing. This morning we came in and all of us were like, oh man, we shouldn't have come today. We have staffing challenges at our offices. We have staffing challenges at our schools. So the management piece is real. And right now I feel like we're challenged with staff that have a skill set. How many of you can relate to that? Right, so whether it be a skill set for cooking, they don't cook or prepare as much at home, those courses aren't offered quite as much. I do find that we have a lot of staff that are trainable, but they come in without a lot of experience. I need staff to be there, I need staff to show up, I need sub-staff, I need them to show up, and I think if I was going to say across the state of Iowa in schools, that is a challenge for food service right now. So we all came in, we have our cell phones out. You probably saw us at the back table multitasking, taking calls from our kitchen managers. So again, very management based. Making sure people come every day, making sure we're staffed every day is a huge part of that. I also want to say, be careful before you criticize school menus, especially at some of the smaller schools, because the menu may be based on staff skills. It just might be that they don't have the skills to cook and prep and prepare those items. So be very mindful of that. In 2015, they adjusted our education requirements. So previous to that, there really wasn't a standard for hiring food service directors. It could be anyone, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the next slide. But that has kind of changed the forefront and why I think dietitians are a good fit for schools. I don't know if you can quite see this, but the standard for hiring is based off of enrollment. So how many schools in Iowa have less than 2,400 students?
Well, I don't know.
A lot, right? So how many of you come from a community where your school district is less than 2,400? So quite a lot. So with that, if you look on this beautiful, nice chart that USDA created, or Iowa maybe, you can see that you can have just a high school diploma and some food service experience to be the director of that program. As the enrollment gets larger, you can see the requirements change. And I think if you look over that to the enrollment on the far right, you'll see that you are required to have someone in a master's area of study, and education is needed at that time. And I think, to me, I thought that was a great change. I'm not sure how everybody felt about it. With this also came continuing education requirements for my staff, and they were not excited. But I think it's very important to have that as well. So I feel like dietitians are a great fit because we have that area of study. Although we may not love our food service classes, they're tucked somewhere back there. And you can bring that knowledge out and learn a little bit more. We have management skills, we know nutrition. Anita will speak on allergies. So I feel like it's a great fit. I think in the state of Iowa, we have more dietitians each year taking on roles in schools, which I think is awesome. A few things that I did not know prior to coming in. Food service funds are separate from the general fund. I didn't realize that. I guess I just thought school funds altogether were one item. But the reasoning is because USDA provides reimbursement and funding for the school lunch program. So when I walked in, they said, here is your budget, it is $1.2 million. And I was like, okay. Coming out of 7 years of clinical, that's great, but you have to be able to run that food service fund completely separate of the general fund. So just because I'm failing and I'm losing money and my participation rates are low, that does not mean I can take money from the general fund to support the food service program, and vice versa. If your food service program is doing very well, the general fund cannot take money from your program. So it's two separate. So you almost have to think of it, I tell my staff we're running our own restaurant. You have your costs, you have expenses, and you have income coming in. And so that is a balance. And I really feel like, honestly, dietitians, we miss out on business courses that I think could really benefit. And I'm really not sure where you squeeze that in, like with the organic chem and all the things, because that would be pretty heavily weighted. But maybe as we roll out new models, we'll see more business classes, whether you're an entrepreneur or in a management role. So I thought that was interesting and something that I didn't realize before. USDA provides reimbursement based on meals that you serve. So your free and reduced level, participation in your program, you have ways to spend that money. So you'll see DOD up there, and that actually means Department of Defense. And when I saw that, I was like, why do they care? And what do they do? So they actually operate our fresh fruit and vegetable program. I'm not sure how that got housed under there. History? No? I got nothing. But again, a government entity that does control that for us. We also have commodity deliveries. So you can have processed products, all domestic, grown within the U.S., choice of what products you serve or choose for your school. I will say that I've never once in my professional career cared about a chicken nugget and the quality of a chicken nugget until I started at school. And it's a big deal, and they care, and it has to be served with mashed potatoes that we really shell rock, so the students will provide you that feedback. But again, some of those are commodity products, and when you choose the wrong one, they will tell you. Again, your budget is very heavily based on your participation rate. So you are going to need a similar number of staff, whether you're serving 10 kids at breakfast or 30 kids at breakfast. They need to be there during that same window of time. So you want to serve more students. those are the customers that we need. So there are a few things that change that dynamic. One of them is open campus. How many of you have open campus in your communities? Right, so those students have the opportunity to go to Casey's for lunch, Quick Star, wherever, and then come back to school. I like to say that our middle school is a very captive audience, and they eat the most out of any of our buildings, as you can imagine. But open campus does change that dynamic at our high school level. So we only have 40% participation at our high school level due to open campus, whereas at our middle school, we're closer to 75%. So that changes our participation rate, that changes our customer, and that changes how that impacts our income. Menu selection. I have students in school now who often give me honest feedback. When I serve something that they don't like, I'm like, why do we have to have refried beans? I'm like, you don't. It's off of our serve. You can choose baby carrots. Or I don't like this. Or my friend said, why can't we get seconds in elementary? And so you get completely honest feedback. And a lot of the time, it's cute because it comes from our cute younger kiddos. But the first week I was there, and I learned about mashed potatoes and gravy and chicken nuggets like it was a thing. Came from a high school student who stopped in my office, and they're like, here's the deal. Like, this is what we do here. And I'm like, what's wrong with, like, the french fries that are baked? Like, it's a potato, I need it to starch, we have vegetable subgroups. I need to meet those, like, it works into production better, it fits in our ovens, we have this, you know? And he's like, nope, it's a thing. Like, it's been a thing forever. And some of you may comment on things like chili and cinnamon rolls. You know, like, it's a thing. I don't know if it's a thing in other states, but, like, it's a thing. So those high school students will also stop and provide you feedback. We switched our ranch, of all things. Like, we switched ranch to a dispenser so that they can pump it themselves. And it was like the end of the world. Kraft Ranch to Heinz, who knew? Like, who knew that people were so passionate about ranch? But you will hear about it. So I think in taking those in stride, I have often said things that I would prefer to have on the menu will never end up on the menu. Chicken nuggets, like, they want them. So let's give them a better option. Let's give them a whole muscle one. Let's give one that's, you know, maybe a little less processed, or I feel like it's a better company. But they want them and they will eat them any way that you serve them. So overall, I just feel like the feedback helps. It streamlines your menu process. But there are a lot of management things that fall into menu production, menu selection. And then the last slide that I have is talking about how can you, as a registered dietitian, support the schools in your community. I remember thinking, I wish people wouldn't give me so much feedback without offering to help. So my suggestion to you as a dietitian is to offer help in a constructive way. Be very mindful of criticism. As you think about why they offer what's on their menu, visit with them about what goals do they have. Visit with them about what would they like to improve on their menu, and see if you can offer them some suggestions. Someone will speak on wellness. Yeah, so wellness committee is a great way to voice that opinion and to offer assistance. Allergies are a big deal, and Anita will speak on that a little bit too, but I would say a lot of those working in director positions at small schools don't have the knowledge base that you have in terms of management or management of allergies or the special diets. Celebrate your school lunch professionals. There is something called a school hero lunch day, where first Friday in May. It's a thing, there's a book about it as well. So celebrate those people that are working in those roles. That job is hard, and I tell my staff that often. I have really great staff with a lot of skill, but some days are really hard. We have classes that show up and they expect to be fed at a certain time, and I can't tell you any restaurant that's gonna come to your community and feed 700 meals in a matter of 45 minutes. That job is hard. It's not the most glamorous. So praise those food service professionals and see if you can offer some assistance to them. Another way that you can help support is, I think a lot of us would like to do farm to school, but it's just that one more thing. So helping to arrange some of those connections or assist with that. But overall, just be very supportive and see if there's a way that you can offer assistance to those that are serving in your community.
So can I go off script for a second? So when she mentioned there are things that you're going to want to get on the menu that maybe aren't going to get on there, that just made me think of a story. So I'm from Des Moines, I'm Anita, and I went into a classroom for Pick a Better Snack and took hummus and broccoli. And I was just so excited, because I'm going to get these kids to eat this broccoli and hummus. And so I go back to our management team to our meeting, and I said, those kids ate that hummus, I think we need it on the menu. And one of our manager's son was in that class. And so then the next week, they ratted me out, and the little boy said to his mom, I had to say thumbs up because she was so excited. So we do not have hummus on our menu, but we'll keep trying maybe. So here are our numbers for Des Moines Public Schools. We are lucky to have 3 dietitians on our staff, and Jen and I are 2 of them. Our third one is Jen Schultz, and she does our training and has taken us to another higher level of that training. As Becky mentioned, those new hours that are required now by USDA. So we're tracking that and training our staff and really making every day better. We serve about 33,000 students, and we have 76% free and reduced. So we have a large population of students who are hungry. And a story to that, we were at lunch one day and we were sitting by this little boy and, baked beans. Maybe not everybody's favorite, but the little boy says to our director, I want more of those. And she's like, what are you talking about? Like the chicken nuggets or the french fries or whatever, but it was the baked beans. So we know we have hungry kids. And so that's what we do every day. We want to feed those kids. In the summertime, we serve about 100,000 meals, and we work with a $20 million budget. This past year, or this year right now, we actually have some declining enrollment, but we have increased our meal participation with going to some community eligible programs, so CEP, and that's where the whole building eats for free. So that's really where we found some more ways to serve some more meals. In April of 2019, there was a study released from the School Nutrition and Meal Cost Study by USDA, and they found that students who consume school lunch program meals have fewer calories, fats, and sodium during lunch than those who pack their meals. So that was a win for school food service. So the big piece of my job is working with special diets. In Des Moines, we have about 600 students who have a diet modification form that's filled out. That has to be signed by a licensed physician, and it's harder every year, I think, or busier, I should say. So yes, you're nodding out there, you're seeing it too. So it's a process. So USDA requires we make accommodations for those with major disabilities affecting major life activities, so of course including our eating, so that's usually how everybody falls into school meals. So managing those special diets, we work with celiac, the gluten-free, type 1 diabetics. We're doing a lot of carb counts, making sure we're getting that information out to our school nurses. We're working with a variety of allergies. The easy ones are the peanut allergy or the milk allergy, and then we have multiple allergies. And so what that ends up being is things coming off the menu for those kiddos, and sometimes it's very challenging. They may end up having sliced turkey many days or the baked scoops, or always the fruits and vegetables seem to be a win that they can do those. So being able to meet that meal pattern, but also accommodating those diets. We do have one student with PKU, so that was a learning challenge for me. I came from a food service background from the beginning. I started at ISU Dining, but this has been my friend. This is the Simplified Diet Manual, so if you don't have these in your kitchens, I highly recommend you get one. They're working on the 13th edition, so if you're interested in this, you can speak to Monica. And then I've also collaborated with classmates, and Andrea Maher helped me a lot with working with dysphagia diets. That was also new to me. We have a developmental school in Des Moines that has about 10 students that have texture modification needs. So with those students, we also work with speech pathologists, occupational therapists, and the school associates also work with us. But usually I just say my nurses are my best friends because they're my communication to the parents usually, and then working with the kitchen manager and bake-off coordinator in the buildings. And then our biggest challenge is knowing the students and putting that face to the name of getting that special diet. In Des Moines, there are 64 schools, so they can be moving around a lot, and they move quickly and sometimes yearly, so we ask for those forms to be filled out each year, so we're making sure the right diet gets to the right student. And then here I just put some considerations that we have to do, just making those meal substitutions. My biggest with learning with the dysphagia diets was getting a blender to my kitchens that they could use to puree or mince up the food. And then we'll eventually get to that ITSE. I'm kind of waiting for our providers to give us that information, but so far we're set up pretty good right now. For milk, we substitute a soy milk. USDA still requires that we would meet the minimum of these 9 nutrients to be comparable to the cow's milk. And then we use the offer versus serve that Kaitlyn talked about for meeting vegetarian, vegan options or students with personal or other religious choices. So one thing we also did is we added a third menu item this year of the sun butter sandwich. So we have to make sure we get our grain and our meat alternate. So with that, we have that as an option every day that students can select that if they don't like our other 2 items. So just kind of some things that we're trying to meet those personal and religious preferences without having to do that diet modification form. I was nervous all day and I'm really nervous up here now. I'm just gonna say it, we're all real, right? Okay, and NutriSlice is what we use to educate our students on the food that we're serving. And this is where we list all of our allergens, our carbohydrate counts, calories, fat, and sodium. And then that's a way to empower our students to know what they're going to select when they come to the lunchroom. That's it. I made it.
Because I do not know why she is so nervous to be talking in front of people. She is probably one of our best educators in front of our kiddos, and she can get them to eat broccoli and hummus, and I swear. There's actually a video out there on Anita teaching a class, so if you would like to look her up, please do so, because I think she'd be really excited for you to get that. Like Becky said, there's so many different avenues, and she didn't start in management, but I actually did like management. That's actually one of the things that I loved about Iowa State. I love my management classes. Didn't like clinical as much. Sorry, Dr. Campbell, personally. But I love my management classes, and I kept wanting to go back into management. But I never found that niche of exactly what I wanted to do until I found Des Moines Public. So I kind of found my way back. So one of the fun things I volunteered myself to do this year is work with our wellness policy. And so this is my boring slide, so bear with me. But the wellness policy does guide a school district's efforts to establish a school environment that promotes students' health, well-being, and ability to learn. So basically, the overall health for our students is in one document. And it happened because of the Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010, and it is required for all school districts participating in the National School Lunch Program or the School Breakfast Program to have a wellness policy. And we also need to continue to update and improve it each year. So we actually have a meeting coming up soon to discuss all things wellness policy this month. Within the wellness policy, districts do need to have certain components, and I do have to read this because I always forget it. So we need to have goals for nutrition promotion and education, physical activity, and other school-based activities that promote student health. We also have standards and nutrition guidelines for all foods and beverages sold during the school day, and these must meet the federal guidelines that Kaitlyn was talking about, and the school meal standards, and all the smart snack guidelines. So within this policy, you have to have it written how we're going to do this. Standards for all food and beverages provided but not sold to students have to be written in there, and a plan of what you're going to do. So, you know, a good example is classroom parties. You know, people love to bring cupcakes, people love to bring cookies. It could be written into the policy where that is not allowed. Other forms of rewards or celebrations can happen, like stickers or pencils. And then policies for food and beverage and marketing. And this is one thing that kind of threw me for a loop when I first wrapped my brain around it, but like those Pepsi Cola signs or anything, any food that does not meet the smart snack category cannot be shown on a billboard in the school during school hours. So that was one thing that's kind of eye-opening to me when I started first digging into this. How do you guys do this? Why did you guys not? I'm just gonna do this. There we go. So I do the wellness policy, and actually, backing up a little bit, the wellness policy is very important. Anita and I just actually went to North Carolina earlier in October, and we laughed because we were with like the big dogs of the nation, like Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, all those people. So we thought we were little dogs in the big dog pool. But it was really cool how many of these health professionals at these big school districts really put the importance of the wellness policy, and it kind of got us re-energized to come back and redo our wellness policy. So it's not just an Iowa thing, it is, you know, nationwide, and this wellness policies are very, very important for us to make sure we have for our kiddos' health. Okay, so my fun part of my job is I am the nutrition grant specialist at Des Moines Public, so I do anything nutrition grant under that umbrella. So that, my big one is Pick a Better Snack, and I do it because of that kiddo in the middle. He loved, what was he eating? We were eating bell peppers that day. So he loved his bell peppers, just loved them. So Pick a Better Snack, who knows what Pick a Better Snack is? Okay, good. Well, presentation done. No. Pick a Better Snack, I had to learn all about it this last year, and Anita was my saving grace because she helped me, held my hand all year, but now I'm flying solo pretty much without her. But we have 30 different elementary buildings in Des Moines Public that participate in Pick a Better Snack, and that is for any grades K through 3rd grade. So we have approximately 375 classrooms in Des Moines Public that have to get a 30-minute nutrition education lesson. We have to do this a minimum of 7 times per school year, so approximately 1 time per month. Every single K through 3 classroom in those 30 buildings gets 1 nutrition lesson. We do have, to do that, we have 13 different educators. Anita and I are 2 of those. We also have some food corps service members. We have some high-need dietitians. We have some other partners out there, and we also have a few retired teachers. So it is really managing the whole grant is what I do, and how to place all these educators to make sure all approximately 375 classrooms are being taken care of that month. There are some requirements for Pick a Better Snack. We have to send out a monthly newsletter, and that is sent home so the parents understand what the kiddos and the students are doing, and it also helps spark that conversation on how to keep the family healthy and also being able to eat on a budget. Because one of the things that Pick a Better Snack is going to those schools that have a high need. So 60% free and reduced they're eligible then to apply to be a Pick a Better Snack school. So, you know, working on a budget is really important for us, and understanding when we talk about some of these fruits and vegetables, how we can make it more affordable for the students. And we kind of talk about all the different forms and how they can get that for that snack we're eating that month. We do have to do a physical activity, and this could be anything from like, usually it's 2 to 5 minutes depending on what's all in the lesson. This month we are doing sweet potatoes, and so we have these plush little, I should have brought it, these plush little sweet potatoes, and we're doing like a hot potato thing, and then when the music stops, we have the students choose from a variety of activities. The kids love the push-ups, we do jumping jacks, we do squats, we do all of that, and the kids have seemed to love it this month. So we do stories of motion, we do anything to get the kiddos up, moving, and just, that release of energy. We also have to give out stickers at the end of each lesson, and this is kind of we always say, when you go home, tell your parents or guardians or family members about what you ate today, and it'll be a reminder with your stickers. And so that'll help spark that conversation at home too on what the kiddos are learning about and how to keep the whole family healthy. Bingo cards are sent out as well. We do third grade. We send bingo cards out to third grade each month. And so what this does is it encourages the families to do a different activity or try a different fruit, try a different vegetable, just be an active, healthy family together. And when the kids bring that back, the next month we give them a little prize, whether it be like a squishy soccer ball or a flashlight, something to help incentivize them to keep being healthy with their family. We always taste the food, and they love that part. Miss Jen, what are we trying today? So this year we are doing zucchini, pears, we're doing sweet potatoes now, kiwi, black beans, pineapple, sweet snap peas, avocados, which I am super excited for, and then we are doing spinach. So some things that we do with our tastings is we add some seasonings. We always try it with just bare form, but then we also sometimes bring some seasonings in so that the kiddos don't feel as scared to eat it sometimes. I will tell you, if you put tahini seasoning with anything you give a child, they will be asking you for that for months. We gave tahini seasoning with jicama sticks last year. In May, they were still asking for that dang tahini seasoning, and we were doing strawberries. So I don't know what it is about it, but they love it. We do have interns that we help. So another thing that Anita and I get to do at Des Moines Public is we preceptors to 2 interns in the fall and 2 in the winter, and then sometimes we get a bonus one in the summer. And so you see one of our interns teaching a class, and then, actually 2 classes. So one of them is doing teaching about the fruit, where it comes from, and then the others, they're doing their physical activity. I could probably talk about peanut butter snack all day long, guys, but we'll go on. All right, so another thing, within my peanut butter snack budget, we'll go back to that. Within my peanut butter snack budget, I do have some farm to school money. I also have what is considered play your way money, and that is encouraging students to get 60 minutes or more of activity per day. That's a new thing that we're doing this year. So I haven't exactly figured it out how I'm going to use all that money yet. But we are piloting at 2 different schools. Farm to school, though, we do have a separate bank of money that we are doing. And so we are, most of our food corps members use that money to do some of their farm to school programming. They do some of their cooking lessons that they do. They do school gardens. We have approximately 20 school gardens in Des Moines Public, and we're really proud and excited about that. We completely revamped one of the school gardens, which is in the middle picture. It is a huge, huge garden. It is 136 feet by 33 feet. And so we now have those 2 raised beds, and so we're excited to keep expanding that. Through this grant, we're able to do that. We have some food corps members who have bought different tools for their garden, and then did taste tests. That's what the salsa is. We purchased some yoga mats, and that was for the Different grant for United Way. So yeah, we try to really incorporate all farm to school things and teach our kiddos where our food comes from. So that is really a part of some of our lessons as well. In addition to Pick a Better Snack, I also coordinate other food service grants. I have done purchased some equipment so that it helps our serving lines. We can do more second chance breakfast, grab and go breakfast, which is also helps increase our participation as well. Delta Dental grant. We also worked with the Delta Dental grant. I didn't write it, but I was part of it, and that it just got some water refilling stations in all of our schools. So I believe all 64 of Des Moines Public Schools has at least one water refilling station. And then I'm also a supervisor to 3 food corps service members. They have 3 different parts of service. Okay. They have 3 different parts of service. One is hands-on learning, and so they do all of our Pick a Better Snack classes in their 2 buildings, but they also do more in-depth lessons on, a lot of cultural lessons, where their food comes from, and just different learning that goes way beyond what we do in Pick a Better Snack. So the kids love it when they're in those buildings. They also have healthy school meals. Another part of their service is healthy school meals, and that is just having them being in the cafeteria, encouraging healthy eating, being that role model that establishes healthy eating in that school. And then the other one is school-wide culture of health, and that's wrapping everything up, like all the learning that the kids do, all the promotion of healthy eating, and really bringing the whole community in and making it one solid, healthy school building. So all of these pictures are of different activities they did last year. You can see some of the kiddos in the garden. They get a taste and pick their lettuce straight from the garden. I think that was at Moore in elementary. We had a Dr. Seuss day, and so the kids were celebrating in the cafeteria by making Dr. Seuss hats with strawberries and bananas. You see them up there with the teaching the students, and then just getting their hands in the garden and learning exactly where their food comes from. Being able to touch it, being able to feel it, really helps their learning, and having those 3 food corps service members has been a blessing for Des Moines. So with that, I will continue to give it to Kaitlyn, and she will talk more about their farm to school efforts.
All right, so just very broadly, Farm to School is a broad umbrella of programming that really encompasses procurement, hands-on learning, and then agricultural, nutrition, or health education. So it's a very broad umbrella, and schools do a lot of different things within Farm to School. And the National Farm to School Network always focuses on the triple win, which is kids win by getting access to fresh local foods, farmers win by getting or opening market opportunities to them to sell their produce into, and then communities win by providing opportunities for family engagement and supporting the local economy. And so in Waukee, we have a 2-year USDA planning grant right now. We're a little over halfway through our grant, and so we're doing a lot focusing around these same 3 key areas: how we're bringing those local foods into schools, how we're teaching kids about where their food comes from. So we have a raised bed garden right now at one building, and then a tower garden at another building, and a couple other schools that are really looking into starting some new efforts there. And then we're also focusing on how we can build a cumulative and integrative nutrition education program that focuses on how teaching kids where their food comes from at every level. So from our earliest kids in our early care programs all the way through 12th grade. That's all I have. I could talk about farm to school all day. So if you have questions, ask. I guess this is what I'm doing. Okay, so this is our last slide. So you can see that we have 3 different types of schools up here, but no matter what district we are in, no matter how many students we have, we all love providing students with a healthy breakfast and lunch to fuel them with their day of learning. And so I know that that's all of our passion, so that is why we're excited to talk to you guys today. So we have about 13 minutes if you guys have any questions.
I have a comment and a question. I worked in school food service for 21 years, and it's been 20 years since I've done that, and I'm still proud to be a lunch lady. And I'm sure you are too. I take it very personal if they're criticized because they work so hard without a lot of recognition. But my question is, we often see in the media these kids who don't eat or have outstanding charges, and somebody comes in and gives them out. And I don't think that's very practical. And I'm just wondering how you deal with kids who either aren't aware, or families aren't aware, or don't choose to apply for free or reduced price meals. How you take care of those kids? Is that an issue for you in your districts?
Sure. I can speak a little on that, and each district has their own way of managing that program. When I walked into our district, we had significant amount of students that I felt used the program as like a charge card, and then at the end of the year, their parents would pay them off, and there were others that didn't and left. So a few ways that we address that is we honestly feed all students. You're required to do so. I know there's a lot of ways that people are like, oh, they took their tray, or they, all of these negative things, of which my staff looked at me and they're like, we would never do that. And I said, you're right, we would never do that. So we do feed all of our students. We have a fund where community members, and I know that we just took $500 this week into that fund, can place funds. They can either direct it towards a student that they know is in need, or we put it there and we ask families to match that donation. So if we, as a district, give them $20, we ask that they give us $20 as well, just so that we feel some of the responsibility goes to the household. We do visit with them about the meal eligibility programs, encourage them to apply, and just try to bring those balances down. But I think the hard part is, and our superintendent has said this many times, it's not at the fault of the student. That their parent may or may not fill out that form, or that they may not have funds to cover that. But we all know that students do well in school when they are fed and not hungry. So we've addressed it in a few different ways. And honestly, I think all of us probably try to fly under the radar on that topic of feeding students, accepting donations, because for a while that was not the thing to do either. But just making sure that our students are taken care of. And I think our administrators know those families really well and can help facilitate that communication with them. Do you guys have other questions?
With the Pick a Better Snacks program, do you guys get to pick what snacks you do, or is it set by the program?
Oh, that's a good question. I meant to mention that. It is set. So each educator that, I fill out one binder for every educator, but all of the materials are on the Iowa Nutrition Network website. And so I basically just copy and put it in a binder. And so it's great because it's not like we just say, here's zucchini for the month, go at it. There is actual topics, there's lessons, there's different conversation starters in those lessons. So it's broken down by kindergarten, first grade, and then we also have a second and third grade. And so the learning's just a little bit different according to the age group. So it's been very helpful so that really, it can help facilitate those discussions.
I'd like to share, I got to help write the most recent lesson plans, which has been a few years now, so thank you, Susie, for the trust in that. But I learned a lot in that time that you can write a lesson plan to get the results you want out of those students. So it was called Wave 2, where they had done a study and, right, am I getting this right? That showed research-based that we can change habits of students to eat more fruits and vegetables and take that information home to parents. So the lesson plans cover those specific things to share that knowledge, share those fun facts, and then for those students to be able to vote with their friends how they like it. Yes, it's okay, not really, but that everybody's respectful, so everybody gets to decide. And then that information back to home with that sticker and our bingo card.
I will also add, there is a little flexibility each month. So like when I said I was really excited about avocados, that lesson is truly peaches, but there's 2 alternative fruits that you could do. And I know my love for avocados, and so I wanted our students to have that love for avocados too.
Do you know what the reason is that smaller school districts don't have those same requirements for directors?
I do not. I think, I believe when that was rolled out, they talked a little bit about the hardship of finding someone that would cover that position for the amount of money they're willing to pay for that position. So I would assume that would maybe be the reasoning behind it. Not every school can afford a dietitian at the wage that we hope to be paid. And so I think that is somewhat limiting as well.
The website information that you talked about, the nutrition or the Pick a Better Snack, is that only in English or what other languages?
We do have materials in Spanish as well. Susie, do we have any other languages? Just Spanish, yeah.
Do you ever incentivize by prices or anything, the healthy choice, make it the easy choice for kids?
We do not necessarily incentivize by pricing. I think we try to encourage the healthy choice as much as we can with signage and doing special events. Like we participate in Iowa Local Food Day, which is something that the Department of Ag and Land Stewardship has coordinated the last 2 years. And focusing on local procurement, and so just sharing with kids that message of this food item was procured from the state of Iowa, it was grown close to your home. Sometimes that encourages them to make a healthy choice, so I think we use some of those kind of marketing techniques to show kids that there is a healthier choice and make it more appealing and interesting to make that choice. I know in our district we don't incentivize by price though.
And then in Des Moines, we do most of our meals, and our funding comes from reimbursable meals, so that's just one thing. So we don't do as much a la carte as like Waukee would do, so they make their money on more a la carte, we make ours on reimbursable.
And I would say I have tried. So if you put fresh fruit out there and you say that it's 50 cents, I'm gonna let you know that they probably don't care. Versus baked Lay's or G2 or Propel. So we do try. We've tried to make it the healthiest choice is a cheaper one. But honestly, I have to laugh a little. Many of you might be parents out here, but you get those calls weekly of like, can you block the a la carte purchases for my kid? They're spending $11 a day, and so it's not necessarily on the string cheese and our fresh fruit, unfortunately. But we do try to encourage those choices as well.
So Anita mentioned the schools that the entire school is free meals. How does that work? Because I've heard of the school in Cedar Rapids where the entire school receives free lunch.
I'll try to tackle that. But yeah, okay. So our director is the main one who helps with all of that pricing in Des Moines. And I guess we're fortunate that way that there's a lot helping us figure that out. So it's based on the number of students in that building that are in that free and reduced category.
Okay.
And so if it's, I forget the exact percentage, 70, 75% or more. So they can, and now we're able to get that number from Medicaid and some direct reimbursement information, so direct certification.
So why is it? Is it just because it's easier to do the whole building, or I guess why are those schools?
Yeah, it is a benefit, and actually what we find is that more students end up participating. It removes that stigma of, oh, he's eating because he gets free meals. Everybody gets to eat for free, or everybody's eating for free, so then everybody's equal. And so it's more about access to that food for everybody. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that helps.
And I think the overall management costs are much less. So when you need to approve meal eligibility applications, if you are approving them for 70% of your district, that takes time and effort and accuracy. So I think schools that have been able to do community eligibility provision have really benefited on the administrative side as well.
Comments about that. Do you think anything will ever change with that to be not the requirement for the percentage of free and reduced? My question is based on the fact that we go to one of the two, I think, in Des Moines schools that don't get to benefit from that. Will anything ever change with that?
So I know our director is working very hard to get everybody in that. It's very advantageous for the whole district to have that option.
Yeah, I think we have 48 of our buildings that are CEP, and I believe we were trying to get 8 more this year. and eventually that is her goal. I think she had a date of like 2023 or something like that everybody will be CEP.
Are there any rumors about improvements in the school wellness policy? So initially came out 10 years ago, maybe now with some new help to help schools make very general terms actually fit within what we're trying to do. Has there been any discussion about something that's now more than 10 years old needing some improvement?
We were discussing wellness policies today at our table. They rolled them out and everyone copied the verbiage word for word at every single district, I would say across the nation. Like you needed a policy, so everyone said, we have a policy, here it is. So the next thing was, now you need goals, and you need to have measurable goals, and you need to be making progress towards goals. So they did that push, and then it's kind of been silent for quite some time. So I feel like a lot of them have fallen off completely, or staff has changed, and they need to regroup. On the national scale, I wouldn't say that there's conversation about improvement of that area necessarily. When they come and visit you for state review, that is one thing that falls under the food service realm. So next week at Waverly Shell Rock, we will be discussing all of those things. They do state review currently every 3 years. That will be switched to every 5 years eventually. But it does get I feel like re-energized when you're coming up for state review. But those staff members that serve on those committees often change, or their roles change. And I know within our district, we don't have a set person. Or you have a teacher that is super passionate and then they leave. So if you are hoping to get your wellness policy back up and going, I would contact your district and offer some of your expertise as well.
Okay, I'll talk fast then. So for us, sorry, I needed to see you so I can talk to you. So for us on our wellness committee, we're meeting monthly. So that's one thing that's been kind of my focus, is being very active and getting our wellness committee going and engaging lots of stakeholders. So that includes internal and external stakeholders. So we have some Hy-Vee folks. We have a parent who also works at the Department of Public Health. So we really try to pull in other stakeholders, and so that's where, again, I think as dietitians, you can be a support to your local school district because they are looking for those people who are passionate about wellness. I know that's a big thing for me when I'm looking for wellness committee members, is I want people who are passionate, who are going to come to the table every month and be excited to talk about, even though it's policy, maybe that's not the most exciting thing all the time, but how can we continue to work towards those goals and make wellness a priority in our district? So, thank you.